We'll now have the insights on the report by Nitin, Chandalia, and Amit Kumar. I'd like to very briefly introduce them to you. Nitin Chandalia, Managing Director and Partner at BCG. Nitin works with technology and media clients on topics including growth, go-to-market, delivery cost transformation, and organization redesign. Recently, he has led several large transformation programs to drive revenue acceleration and margin improvement. Joining him on stage will be Amit Kumar, also partner at BCG. Amit is an experienced management consultant with 15 plus years of client servicing experience in IT, media, and telecommunication domains across India, USA, and Southeast Asia. I'd like to request both Nitin and Amit to share their insights on the report.
All right. Looks like I will need to use this mic. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, nasscom, for this great opportunity. We've heard, a very good description and point of views from both Sangeeta as well as Dr. Mittal. The future of work, as all of us, in this room have obviously seen evolve over the last couple of years, has been one of the big talking points as one looks at specifically the tech services industry, right? What we want to do today, as we get started, is to give you a quick overview of what we have done, what was the approach that was followed. The report is available on the website, so we'll not take a lot of time to walk you through a lot of details, but just at least give you a flavor of what's actually gone in, as part of the report, what to expect, and what you could find useful in the context of your own organizations as you think about what kind of models may be useful to test, what are some of your peers in other organizations doing, and what are some of the learnings that we have seen over the last 12, 18, 24 months. All of this, it's I think quite pertinent to say we are all in the test and learn mode here. It's a classic agile kind of a approach that we are all following, organizations are following, trying different models, seeing what works, and then adapting and evolving. Now, if I look at how the IT services industry overall, as well as the IT-enabled services, set of industry out of India has evolved over the last couple of decades, it will be only fair to say that this is the next evolution in the growth journey, right? We started a couple of decades back where pieces of work were actually almost just lifted and shifted to India and other offshore locations. Cost arbitrage, labor arbitrage was the only value proposition. In many cases, there was an overhead created, duplication created just to make sure quality was not compromised, right? From there to getting to more complex kind of work, end-to-end project delivery out of India, that was the next phase of evolution. And then what's actually called here is third phase is more of a transitory phase from this to what we are calling as the future of the remote and the hybrid model, wherein boundaries around the globe have actually disappeared because what were traditionally considered as synchronous tasks which required people to be together in the same office or in the same time zones, many of those have now forced us to look at them in what is truly synchronous versus asynchronous. And that actually opens up the next wave of opportunity for this entire sector in terms of type of work, the role that organizations, centers in India play in the overall delivery, right? Ownership, both in terms of ownership of type of work as well as the level of impact one is able to drive, as part of working on many of these projects that we have been part of. So moving forward, as the three kinds of inputs that we have sort of tried to capture in this report are a point of view from employees, a point of view from leadership in companies, as well as, in many cases, the buyers of these services, which are either using third-party service providers or using GCCs in India for the delivery, right? And we will touch upon some of the point of views quickly in terms of what we have heard. Based on the different surveys that we had done, and this is coming in from a global survey that was done, employees' preferences around remote work and the future hybrid model are fairly well established. 70% plus of people want some form of hybrid work to be there. It's only 5% of the respondent population which actually wanted to come back to office full time, just like pre-COVID, right? There is some element of hybrid, whether it's part remote, full remote, which everybody is expecting. At the same time, when we ask them what is it that they value as they associate, what are value while coming back to office, only about 20% of this, 20% of them listed the office infrastructure as a key enabler, right? All other points which were called out as the top reasons of coming back to office were actually around human interaction and the in-person connect. Whether it's about social, which is actually the first point, about more than 1/4 of the people said they really miss the social interaction in the office, which is the informal connect. And then we had another 40% talking about how in-person discussions and meetings are important both for collaboration as well as the traditional formal meetings, right? So the role that an office space or the workplace plays cannot be completely taken out. But at the same time, we are seeing a significant interest and almost a demand for organizations to have some sort of a remote model in place. Yeah. As I was talking about, that was the employee view. We also spoke to several buyers of tech services across different kind of work that gets done, right? And we are seeing increasing level of comfort with some model of remote working. Most of the respondents in our survey had said that look, they are comfortable with a combination of in-office and remote work, but the specific model will have to be tailored according to their own work models as well. So, in a third-party situation, for example, clients are comfortable with remote, but they would like the service providers to follow similar models as they are following for their own sort of in-house workspaces. And what that means, especially for third-party service providers, there cannot be one model. In many ways, for every client of yours, that could be a unique combination of models that one will have to look at, depending on the kind of work being done, which cities and which locations, because many of the companies are actually multi-location, not just in India, but outside India as well. So as a third-party player, each of the locations will have a certain kind of requirement coming in from the different clients that one is serving out of there. Right? But net, everybody is okay with that. We also, at some point had started to gather data through surveys with nasscom on what's the expected percentage of people in office by a different time frame. Towards the end of last year, that number was looking more like a 30% and was expected to go up to close to 50% beginning of this year itself. And then we had the next wave of COVID, which sort of brought that number down significantly. But as of now, expecting sort of 50% of the workforce to be back in offices, on an average by the end of Q3 of this calendar year, right? Which is a significant number in the shift from where we were just about 8 to 9 months back. And this is where about the time we expect the models will also start to sort of get some sense of certainty for what's going to last for the next 6 to 12 months. It will keep evolving, but at least employees will get a good level of certainty around when they are expected to come in, what the models are, which are likely to play out. With that, I'll hand over to Amit to talk about the various elements of designing the future of work. Amit.
Thank you so much, Nitin. What we'll do is that we'll dig a bit deeper in terms of what we heard from many of the experts we spoke to. We spoke to many of the employees as well. What is clearly coming out is that while this is an opportunity, there is definitely a series of things that need to be thought through. And the core of that is talent. And as we think about it, what talents pool do we go after, right? How do we actually do our hiring, not just in the key cities, but also the smaller cities? The next challenge is that how do we actually bring on board the large number of people that join tech services every year? As we were talking to different people, one phrase actually caught our attention. The people are saying, what is the chain of culture that we have? When we entered the pandemic, we were able to very clearly have the momentum that culture continued. Today, as we speak, most of our organizations have at least 50% of the people who have joined post-pandemic. How do we ensure that when we transition to a hybrid model, that culture is sustained and is growing, because that is the identity that we have. Amongst other things, one key thing I would like to call out is that the focus of going from a synchronous way of working to an asynchronous way of working, and we'll touch base a bit more about it. But that's a fundamental shift in the way how our teams are actually working and how some of our teams are also structured going ahead. As we thought about it, and we said that, okay, if we take a step back, what will it take for us to find an answer? I think what is very evident is that the answer is very, very localized to specific clients, to specific teams and specific roles as well. We found that very clearly. We very often speak about how we work, but it is equally, and I'll say it is more important to talk about how we lead our teams, because what we learn is essentially learning on the job with our leaders, with the guidance, the mentorship that a lot of people get from their seniors. The second and third is more tactical. We say that how do we organize? For example, as we think about pre-pandemic and hybrid, we compare those. Does the team structure, team pyramid essentially need to be the same? The answer is no. But then what change do we need to bring in? Last, more importantly, is what we need. It is not just in terms of the workplace, how the workplace is designed, but also tools and technologies that are required to enable hybrid model. I think we have a good foundation as we went through the entire remote, but a lot more needs to be done. And we'll talk about the concept of equitable employee experience, which has to be enabled by the tools and technologies. Not surprising, as we spoke to many of the senior leaders across tech services, we heard the phrase like, by default, everything is hybrid, and then we take it up from there. People said that while there might be certain people who will be good with 60-40, I would also want to qualify that there will be some jobs which will require full on-site kind of a work environment as well. All said, very good adaptation is happening in terms of going from remote to hybrid, both from the employees as well as employers, and all the leaders are focused on finding the right answer for their employees. As we look at, and Sangeeta mentioned that the future is not binary. On one end we have the fully remote, and on one end we have the fully on-site. We believe there are three key archetypes that we need to think through. And if you look at what we call as connected remote, this is where what we say is that the employees come together once in 3 weeks, once in 4 weeks to connect. And this is where the chain of culture comes into the picture, that I want to know what my organization stands for. I want to feel connected as part of a larger family. What the implication it has is that an employee needs to be in the 3 to 4 hours of commuting distance from the office. And this is how it is linking to the location strategy. As we talk about hybrid or flex model, as we like to talk about, we talk about 2 to 3 days in office, which is what we say scheduled remote. However, I want to call out the focus on the on-demand on-site, which is very, very important for some of the jobs. What we say is that we continue to work in hybrid remote environment till the time we need to be together. If we're doing a project, if we're doing an intense collaboration, discussion, innovation, it may happen that for 15 days everyone is office. And when the job demands, we are there. When we can do remotely asynchronous work, we are working remotely. This is the point I was mentioning, that as we think about the synchronous to asynchronous, this is a big shift that is happening. This sort of an undercurrent which all the industry's tech services have very well adopted. Earlier there were two things which were sort of set in stone, that I will work 8 hours continuous and I will work those 8 hours 100% of the capacity. Now those two dimensions are being pushed for the benefit of the employees as well as the clients. One big thing is that how we move from 8 hours to 5 hours plus 3 hours kind of a model. Many companies are thinking about it. 5 hours is continuous with the teams, 3 hours is also flexible. As we think about the future of our workforce, right, average age for India is about 30 years. Most of these people will go and start families, will have elder parents to care for. How do we build that kind of flexibility which benefits our workforce in the future for next 1 to 2 decades as well? The second key thing that is happening is that how it provides larger or greater efficiency in terms of catering to the client needs as well, because it is not necessary that everyone working at the same time continuous is the best model. But this is enabled by technology, because what happens is that when we are not working together synchronously. There's a lot of discussion that needs to be happening through the tools and technologies. If we talk about, and we are speaking to a very senior leader for tech services, just want to call out an example how some of the leaders are approaching it. They said the phrase is that there is a quad. There's a quad of the workforce, workplace, and work culture. And they said these are the 4 key participants in the discussion that are thinking that, okay, how do we work together and elevate the kind of outcome that we want. And this particular organization said that we have laid down all the tools and technologies, the archetypes of the model, and we trust our employees. We trust our employees to make the right choice. And that to me is a very, very advanced way of thinking about it, because it's balancing what works for the employees and what works for the clients. And the leader said very importantly that whatever works for employees and clients will always work for us. And that to me is a very great way of thinking. Moving ahead, I will be mindful of the time as well. We spoke about leaders, and the first line of leaders are the set of leaders which actually nurture the talent in the first couple of years. We believe that is a key part that is going to evolve. Now, what does that mean? We believe that there are 4 things which are coming through very, very strongly. First is that you sort of devolve the kind of autonomy downwards. You trust your teams a lot more. You allow them to make decisions. They are ready to reach out to you whenever they need guidance. Second aspect is the level playing field, which says that if I have 2 team members who are sitting with me in the room, 3 team members who are joining through remote, how do I ensure that all of them have equal voice? There are other aspects of this as well which are important. For example, how do I even ensure that they are also being assessed equally? As we talk about more with aspect of sort of forcing digital intimacy, ensuring that people collaborate with each other, people talk beyond the work as well, that has to be a structured kind of a thought process that the first line of managers have to drive. What people are doing is they're actually holding special training sessions for the first line managers, the team leaders, to drive such a kind of a behavior. We spoke about the tier 2 and tier 3 towns and how they're essentially leading to a lot of new innovation, and it's a good benefit that we are driving. What we found is that about 75% of tech services organizations and BPM, which is non-voice, are actually very eager to do that. Voice-based processes are a bit behind, and understandably so, because the kind of training it takes. But even that is above 50%. To me, that is a big thinking to actually work on. What we think about tier 2, tier 3 is not just, I'll say, cost benefit, just an outcome which we should not even think about. What is important is that how do we retain the talent? How do we think about how can we induct the talent not from like top 20 cities, but maybe targeting the next 60 cities as well. There's a lot of progress which has been made by the industry. Most of the leaders we spoke to have said that they've opened at least 5 to 6 centers in the last 18 to 24 months. And I say this is something which is going to grow even further. Last we'll speak about the equitable employee experience, and I'll touch upon a couple of aspects. And these are very important. Sometimes we thought this is something sort of a given as we were in the physical, always in office kind of a work environment. But one thing to just call out is that if we talk about performance management and evaluation, it is not that there has to be a bias against the remote, but even a perceived bias can derail the entire hybrid model. So as you think about your policies, it's not just the policies, but also how you communicate. What it also means is that how do I actually start forcing people to drive an affiliation across all the online, offline, that kind of environment. Another thing that I would like to call out is that the productivity measures, very often, unfortunately, we equate the number of hours spent equal to the effort that an employee has put in. That is going to go away because we want to move to a more outcome-based model. So how do we sort of solidify that kind of a thinking and then use that to drive a productive outcome and discussion with our employees? As we go about this journey, what is very clear is that it is not a journey that we will get the first time right. We need to experiment. Employees and both our clients are key participants in this journey with us. And what we are seeing is that a lot of companies have taken the first steps, they're experimenting, they're taking feedback from the clients, and ongoing basis they will keep on refining this. But thank you so much for all the inputs. We'll maybe, if we have time, maybe we'll welcome few questions.
Maybe one question and then we can take more questions. We're going to be around through the day. I know we are trying to make up time. We're about 10 minutes behind. But sure, please go ahead.
I would like to know whether NASSCOM has come with some kind of questionnaire to understand about, the employees, how they choose the hybrid, or it will help them to understand which environment is good for them. For example, if they choose hybrid, what can be the benefit for them, how they're going to improve the productivity, some sort of things. So I just want to know whether you come with some kind of questionnaire which can help companies like us. Thank you.
Sure. So, if I understand, there are various ways for different kinds of work. The assessment or applicability of what is the right model of hybrid that we can share with you, as well as something that we have built with NASSCOM. At the end of that, I'm assuming when you say questionnaire, it's for the companies to decide, for different kinds of work, what could be a good work models. There are many frameworks out there. NASSCOM and us, we can share some with you as well, which could be quite helpful. Yeah. All right, with that, we'll wrap. Thank you, everyone, for listening in so patiently. We'll look for any questions through the interactions that we have around the event. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed, Nitin and Amit, for that insightful report.